Hello, Blue Justin here, still Justin, still not blue, still with a bad back, but still doing videos. This is the video that was voted for into second place in my recent voting online. It leapt up at the last minute, pushing down the anime video into third place. I will be doing an anime video, but I might wait until the October announcements have been made so I can do the announcements for the whole of October. So please keep your eyes on that if you're interested in the anime stuff. This one, however, is the first in my top 5 movies of each year of my life. So I cut it down to 5 from the usual 10 because I tend to go on and on about things, and I know they're going to last a long time because I'm me. So anyway, yeah, so I know I had a 5 this year, so this works as well. Righty-ho, so we're starting with a long time ago when I was born, which is a great year for English football, which was 1966. Yep, so we start off with a couple of honourable mentions. I think this is going to get much more difficult as I go through the years, and the honourable mention list might expand to be half of the year's stuff. But in this particular year, the honourable mentions are Django, which is a nice revenge western, and Dracula, Prince of Darkness, which is a Christopher Lee classic gothic Dracula one. So now we'll move on to my 5th place, and that is another Christopher Lee, as it happens. I have this one on, in fact I have all of these on Blu-ray. So this is Brides of Fu Manchu. This is, like I said, Christopher Lee. This is my favourite of the Fu Manchu movies. It comes from this set, which includes a whole bunch of titles you can see there. Now, obviously, Christopher Lee's yellow face makeup wouldn't be acceptable nowadays, but back in the 60s and even on into the 70s and potentially even later, actors commanding such a performance you just couldn't get Asian actors that would bring that appropriate audience to into the fold. So in this particular case, yeah, Christopher Lee went into yellowface, but this, like I said, is my favourite of the Fu Manchus, mostly because I think this one has the best interaction or back and forth between him and his daughter, who was played by Tsai Chin, and in fact she played his daughter in all the Fu Manchu movies. The only thing that annoys me is that I know that they're releasing some of the Fu Manchus in 4K at the moment, but this doesn't happen to be one of them. Otherwise I've probably waited and got that. So yeah, I'm going to go on about this a little bit, because I think Tsai Chin plays a very important role in this, in that when she was, she was actually an Asian actress playing up against a very big film, relatively speaking, and she put in an awful lot of effort to trying to get more good roles for Asian actresses. She recognised that playing opposite highly regarded and good actors like Christopher Lee enabled her to learn her craft much better, and would do so also with other actresses and Asian actresses. So, and she was really pushing for that, it was really good, especially back then. That it was nice to see, like I said, especially when you getting people yellow facing, and she was actually a genuine Asian actress. So yeah, she was pushing for that, and shockingly enough, this was shot in the same year as her parents back in China were being purged by the government and murdered because they were artists, which later went on to cause her financial and mental stability problems, not a surprise. But like I said, at this time she was actually quite a personality, as she tried to get all this extra popularity for Asian actresses, and probably actresses in general, and this was personified in the fact that she was popular on game shows at the time. She had a singing recording contract. She appeared in lots of theatre productions, and even to the extent that she got a Chinese leopard in London Zoo named after her. So that was pretty amazing at the time for her, popularity. That sort of thing, was relatively rare for someone in her position. So she was doing a fantastic job. She later soon incidentally went on to play in James Bond, You Only Live Twice. She's the actress that is with James in bed right at the beginning, and spoiler, minor, and is the one that springs the trap with the bed that traps him against the wall when the machine gunners come in, that he has to then comes back from to live twice. Thus the name of the film. Actually, she went on then to appear in a small role in Casino Royale with Daniel Craig years and years obviously later, and is still alive at the age of 91. So that's quite amazing. In this, like I said, that I think is my favourite because she has a much bigger role than I remember her having in any of the others, because she has this hypnosis power which she uses to control the kidnapped scientists' daughters, as Fu Manchu tries to force them into making a death ray, as you do if you're a villain in the 1960s. So yeah, and I think unfortunately I got annoyed at later films when they forgot that she could apparently hypnotise people and stop them escaping, etc., etc., which was very well used and fantastic in this one. So that's like I said, my fifth favourite film of 1966. In fourth place, we have a film that I do have, but it is buried in a box somewhere, so I'll just put a little picture up here, and that is Fantastic Voyage. Very inspired, clever plot, especially for its time. Won the Oscar for 1966 for special effects, as the miniaturized submarine was injected into a dying patient to save their lives. This one stars, stars Raquel Welch, Donald Pleasance, and Stephen Boyd. Now, Stephen Boyd would later go on to play in a role in the film Hanny Calder, where Hanny Calder was the eponymous lead, also played by Raquel Welch. Whereas in this film, this was actually Raquel Welch's debut film. It was very, very popular. She was very, very popular. She was immediately signed to 20th Century Fox, and the film was very successful, with a very exciting plot of having to fight off the body's natural defences and navigate its way through. Of course, there was a saboteur on board this miniaturised submarine, and it was all time limited before the miniaturisation would wear off. So there was lots and lots of tension. So that was, like I say, my fourth favourite film of 1966. Going on to my third favourite, and this is another Raquel Welch film, but please don't read too much into that. And this is 1 Million Years BC. This is the nice little steelbook I have here, little Blu-ray limited edition, which I'm very pleased about. After she was signed to 20th Century Fox, Raquel Welch was, oddly enough, lent out to Hammer to make this film. And obviously it has the basic plot of a man from a quite primitive tribe called the Rock Tribe gets, I think he's kicked out or abandoned or whatever, but is found washed up on a beach by Raquel Welch's character, who is the much more advanced Shell tribe, from the much more advanced Shell tribe. She's the daughter of their chieftain. I think the chap was the son of their chieftain, as it happens, but I'm not sure that's so important. As you can probably guess what happens next, she nurses him back to health in a sort of prehistoric romance type way, but there's lots of shenanigans with prehistoric creatures that don't exist at the same time as man, like dinosaurs that weren't around at the same time as human beings, and giant spiders that weren't around ever. But it was absolutely thrilling on screen, and famous for the great special effects of the those creatures that might not have existed at the right time, but we'll forgive them anything because they were animated by Ray Harryhausen. So yeah, fantastic, great fun, and of course Raquel Welch in that fur bikini, causing this film to actually be Hammer's biggest box office success. So what a good choice of Hammer to try and successfully borrow her from 20th Century Fox. So yes. Next up, and in second place, this is one of the few of these that's got a Blu-ray release in the UK. The few of the Carry On films. This is Carry On Screaming, and not that many Carry On films have got Blu-ray releases in the UK. Many more have been put out by imprint in Australia. See Kermit's Ghost channel for details on various releases. But yeah, this one is one of my favourite Carry-Ons. So yeah, even though it doesn't have a lot of the, or is missing some of the main actors or swapped out, it has Harry H. Corbett in a role that was originally meant for Sid James. Sid James was contracted to do a panto at the time, which clashed with filming, and being under contract, he just couldn't do it. Also, Hattie Jakes isn't in this one, but at the same time, you've got you do have the classics of Kenneth Williams as the mad scientist, Jim Dale. Fenella Fielding is a new entrant to this one only, with some absolutely fantastic lines. And Joan Sim is in there, being married to the Harry H. Corbett stroke would have been Sid James' character as the nagging wife, as she normally would have been. Also here, and I've got to name this because, you know, I'm a big fan. It's got Angela Douglas, the gorgeous Angela Douglas, in my opinion. It also has, in a very relatively small part, only about 5 minutes, Charles Hawtrey, but I mention that specifically because the US specifically requested him because he's so popular or was so popular over there in the Carry On films, that he actually, for his 5 minutes, they requested him in there, and he got top billing for the film to get people to go and see it when it was over in the States. So obviously that big a deal. This is a very nice little blue, like I said, very rare to get a Blu-ray that's also got a commentary on, which is nice to see. The other point to raise on this one is it also has John Pertwee in one of his 2 roles in Carry On films. This role, he plays a police advisor, mad scientist type, not at all Doctor Who related. And his only other role, I believe, in Carry On films was he played the much made up soothsayer in Carry On Cleo, which happens to be another one of my favourites. So yeah, and that is in second place, and that just leaves the number 1 spot. And for those who know 1966 films, you can probably guess what's coming up. And as it happens, this was usefully timed release for this video, because it's only just come out, and it's, as you can tell, because it's still in its lovely shrink wrap, and that is The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, the final film in the Dollars trilogy, obviously starring Clint Eastwood as the titular man with no name, just generally called Blondie. And my wife and I still can't usually use the word Blondie in a regular sentence without pronouncing it a bit like Tuco, or do a very bad impersonation of Tuco from the film. Tuco being played by Eli Wallach as the Ugly, and of course Angel Eyed being the Bad, being played by Lee Van Cleef in a particularly vicious role, but brilliantly played. With all 3 of them after some buried gold in the middle of the US Civil War. In fact, I believe at one point, the point where they have to cross the battlefield, I believe that was a real battlefield situation that did occur in the war, though obviously I don't think people were trying to cross it to get to a secret stash of buried gold necessarily. Absolutely lovely set, incidentally. The fact that Clint Eastwood's in it, and he's my wife's favourite actor, and he's one of my favourites too, so expect him to be in more of my top 5s. So essentially this one comes out by number 1 from 1966, a 1 minute shy of 3 hour western starring three great names, finishing off a fantastic trilogy with a finale that has been often copied with a three-way Mexican standoff, but never bettered in my opinion. And this particular release was absolutely excellent and well timed for this video. It also comes with lots of extra discs, including the international and extended cuts, and 2 discs worth of extras, including a documentary on the location of the graveyard where they did the where the gold was buried. I think that's what it's about. It's called Sad Hill Unearthed. So yeah, this one, I was I'm very pleased that I ordered it early on. In fact, I ordered it so early on, I even got the HMV 20% reduction for people who knew how to get 20% reductions. And now apparently it's going for really silly 100+ quid amounts of money second hand, this collector's set one. It's absolutely ridiculous, but I mean, I'm still not selling mine. I'm just very, very happy to have it. Like I said, favourite film of 1966. So there you have it, my top 5 films of 1966. And next time I shall be back with, obviously, as if you couldn't guess, my top 5 films of 1967, as we work towards the modern day. And I am expecting this to get more and more difficult, and goodness knows what I'm going to do. I'm going to regret reducing it down to 5 instead of 10 when I hit the mid to late 80s. I know that. So I don't know what I'm going to. I think my list of also rounds I could have put these anywhere is going to be much, much longer than a couple I mentioned today. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please hit like. Please mention if you want what your top 5 of 1966 would be in the comments. Any comments you do want to make, I shall reply to, as I always do. And I shall be back soon with another video. Thank you very much for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. And bye.